Hello, and welcome to the Artistry. I am your host, Canary T. Robot. Today, we have he calls himself funny, comedian on our show. He goes by the name Eric Escobar.
Hey!
Hi, Eric.
Hello, Canary T. Robot. How you doing?
Doing good. You sound like a robot more than I do, but...
Slightly. I'm getting over a little something, so my nose is very, nasally and robot-y. I guess robots have a lot of nasal problems, I assume.
Yeah, actually, as speaking as one, I actually do have a lot of nasally problems.
Mucinex, yo. Mucinex.
Yeah. So, Eric, tell us, what do you do?
So I am a stand-up comic. I travel around and tell jokes. Primarily work clubs, but also work some theaters and colleges every once in a while, some corporate events, kind of wherever I can find work. But yeah, pretty much just a touring stand-up comic who travels all over and does little quick jokes from place to place.
Now, tell us, how did you get started with that?
It's been kind of an interesting journey. I remember when I was in high school, I was playing football for our team, and I want to say it was raining one day, or the coach was sick for some reason. Practice was canceled, and I kind of just was waiting around for my ride. I was 14, couldn't drive. I think my mom was giving me a ride home or something, and I stumbled upon the improv team at our high school. So I joined it for practice. A couple days later, I quit football, joined the improv team full time, started doing plays with our theater at school, and that kind of led me into the world of comedy and the world of performance. We had this amazing improv coach. His name was Tom Clark. Still know the guy to this day. Very, very, very funny comic. He was our improv coach specifically for our high school. And I remember him talking about stand-up. And I remember one time trying to coordinate a workshop and trying to see if maybe, he can come do and do an improv thing with us. And his reason was oh, I can't do it that day because I'll actually be on tour doing stand-up in South Africa. And that was such a valid excuse. I was what? So I'm oh no, I have dinner plans. You're no, I'm performing in another country for money. I was that's so cool. I wish I could do something like that. So yeah, that's I think when it first put in my mind that stand up was something that was really cool, something attainable. With almost any kind of big job. You might be oh well, it'd be cool to be an astronaut, but I'll never be an astronaut. And then you might meet someone who works at NASA, and you're oh geez, this is attainable, and people do this. And that was kind of my aha moment when I met Tom. I think I tried an open mic when I was 18 in a local club, and it went horrible. I tried another open mic when I was probably about 20 years old. So the same time I did it was actually an open mic at our college where everyone else was a poet or a musician. So it was very oh, this is so weird, and I don't think you want me here, but I got 3 jokes, and oh, here you guys go. I'm gonna go back and illegally drink Natty Light in my dorm now. And then when I was about 22...
Oh, Eric, I gotta stop you. Can you mind twisting the machines on your robotic voice? It's starting to sound more robotic than normal.
Oh, now. A little better?
A little more far away, I think.
Oh, how about this?
That's a bit better, yeah.
Oh, sweet. Okay, cool. Slow it down.
Or just a little touch closer.
Hello?
There we go. Much better.
Oh, perfect. This is the place I'll hold the mic.
There you go.
But I did an open mic when I was about 20 years old at my college. And then after that, I want to say I didn't really do stand-up again until I was 22 when Tom, my improv coach, actually was teaching a stand-up class. So I took that class. Out of that class, I did a little showcase, had a good little, 5-minute set under my belt, had some jokes, knew what jokes were, knew kind of what to do. That ended up turning into doing a couple little bar shows. Those bar shows turned into auditions at clubs. Those clubs turned into paid work at clubs. And then ever since then, the ball just started rolling. And 4 years later, next thing you know, I'm a working stand-up comic, and it's been an amazing ride and a really a dream come true ever since.
I love interviewing like creative professionals like you because I will ask one question and all of a sudden you'll answer like a lot of people I've interviewed, you'll answer like 4 more questions. I'm like, dang.
Re-ask the question, I'll give you 2 words, and then all the other questions will just lock it.
No, I do have one question. Would you recommend taking class or comedy classes or improv classes or improvisation for people who do not know the lingo out there to people who would like to be comedians one day? Or
Yeah, you bring up actually a couple interesting points. I think a lot of people watch stand-up specials on Netflix or Comedy Central or HBO, and they're like, I want to do that. I guess I got to take an improv class. And what's really interesting is I love improv so much. I started in improv. I'm currently on an improv team. I just got back from actually an improv show about 10 minutes ago. It's an amazing, wonderful thing, and I love improv so much, but it is very, very different from stand-up. And I think if you are looking to do stand-up comedy, um, you really have to look for a stand-up class or a class that specializes in stand-up and really do your research on what the teacher's doing, what the teacher's all about. Are they a comic that works the road a lot? Are they a comic that does a lot of stuff on TV? Are they a stand-up comic, but their main thing is, they're an actor, they do sitcoms. Really figure out what you'd like to do, and sometimes that means taking an improv class and a stand-up class and an acting class and kind of finding like, oh, which one do I like more, and then kind of do your research and run with it that way. Just because I know so many people who are like, stand-up, I'd love to do that. I want to take an improv class, and they're like, whoa, this is not stand-up, this is so different. If anyone is interested, though, in doing any art form, I wouldn't just limit it to comedy or improv or stand up. I'm a huge supporter on find your passion. If something makes you happy, dive into it, go full force, because life is short, and if you love doing comedy, I highly recommend starting out taking a stand up class, or if you love improv, taking an improv class, because not gonna lie, it is a very harsh world, and I think it's best to have a little bit of a basis and know a little bit of what's going on before you immediately start, auditioning for clubs, or you immediately start, sending out a tape of you doing stand-up in your living room to TV shows asking, if they need a comic on Jimmy Fallon or, late night or whatever. Just kind of figure out what you want to do, and once you think you have a good grasp on it, just run with it and don't look back, because if you look back, it's going to be so much nicer to be like, oh yeah, I could pay rent at one point. Oh wow, it was nice eating anything other than fast food. So yeah, just go for it.
yeah, that's one of the reasons I started for this podcast because I do believe people should start their or go after their passion, but sometimes people don't know how to go after it. This is why I'm like, yes, I can. I think this podcast could work for people.
100%. Like, kind of like what I said earlier, I think comedy was always something that I really enjoyed. I remember being a kid, and we had these like VHS cassettes of like Laurel and Hardy, and they were like black and white, and they were like super old. And I always thought they were so funny, but I never even remotely considered like, oh, this comedy thing that I grew up with, and this thing that I see on TV every once in a while, like that could be something I could do. Until I met other comics, until I met an improv coach who did comedy as his full-time thing, and I was like, oh wow, yeah, this is something I could do. And I think a lot of people don't have that aha moment, and it's kind of rare to have an opportunity just to be like, oh, this thing that I love, I can be a part of that community, I can do this as a job. Yeah, you can. Just, you might need to hear that you can do that or something before you dive in.
Now, what is like a typical day for you as a comedian?
Um, I would say a typical night, because I usually get up around like noon.
Okay, correction. What is a typical night for you like?
Perfect. Night to early morning, we can do that. It really depends. As a comic, you really, a lot of people think, oh, you just tell jokes. And it's like, what, it's a lot more than telling jokes. And that may sound a little pretentious, and may sound a little like, oh, yeah, it's bigger than that. But it really, really is. I'll wake up, and a good chunk of my day would be writing, trying to generate material, maybe look on notes of a show or an open mic I did the night before, seeing how I can craft something a little differently. Looking up news articles and looking up what's going on currently, and pretty much just writing jokes based off headlines, writing jokes and bits or ideas based off just current events that are happening. For a couple of reasons. Reason number one, it definitely helps you generate material that's very current. I could go on and on and on about like Bill Clinton jokes. I have Bill Clinton jokes for days, but it's just not. It's not relevant. You know what I mean? What's the new stuff? What are you talking about?
It has to be about Hillary now. Sorry.
That's about Hillary. All my Bill Clinton jokes just replace the name with Hillary. So
exactly.
And the other reason is a big part of comedy that I think makes people attracted to it, both the performer and both as a comedy fan or an audience member, is you really do feel a sense of connection when you listen to comedy, because if someone tells a really, really dark joke with a really, fucked up sense of humor, and you laugh at it, you almost have a bigger connection and you laugh at it a little extra hard because they get you on that level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, if you're married and a comic does a marriage joke, you know what I mean? You're going to really appreciate that joke because it's something that's a little more what you're used to, what you know. So really kind of researching and just figuring out what people are into right now, how can I connect with them the best? That's kind of my style of writing, so I can really kind of navigate a way of really connecting with people opposed to just spouting out, funny wordplay. After writing some jokes, typically what I'll do is I'll begin calling clubs and emailing clubs, or calling and emailing to follow up, if not a cold call. A lot of working comics, or I should say some working comics do have a connection to an agency, or they are managed by someone, but I would say a surprisingly large chunk of us are actually booking all of our own work. I book all my own colleges, I book all my own clubs, I book all my own tours, all my own runs. And it isn't as simple as, emailing a club and they're like, yeah, we like you, come on down. It's you might email 50 clubs, 10 of them get back to you with a maybe, and out of that 10, you might be able to book one a year to 18 months from that conversation. It really is a lot of waiting. It's a lot of hitting a club, maybe trying to feature for them. A feature would be someone who maybe goes on before the headliner, but after the hosts. And they're like, oh, well, we would like for you to audition for us first. So, you drive out 4 or 5, 6 hours. You do an unpaid 5-minute set for them. You drive back. They might be like, hey, we liked your 5-minute set. Can you come back and MC for us at a little bit of a lower rate? So you go back, maybe open up the shows for a weekend, 4 or 5, 6 shows, doing 10 minutes. You come back, you hit them up again. They're like, oh, yeah, sure, I think you're ready to feature. Or, hey, maybe can you MC another weekend for us before we move forward with you? So you maybe MC again, or you come back to feature. And,
No, pretend, I know what MC means, but pretend,
yeah.
What does MC mean?
Oh, an MC is basically like your host of the show. So your standard show is kind of set up in a way where an MC or your host comes out, and they might warm up the crowd with 10 or 15 minutes. You'll typically have a guest set, so maybe it's a local headliner or celebrity or big comic in town, or maybe even like a new comic the club is trying out. We'll do about 5 to 10. You then have your feature or your middler. Your middler is going to do about 20 to 30 minutes. And then right after him, you have your headliner. Your headliner is where you kind of want to be. It's your name's on the marquee, your names and all the emails they're blasting out to all their audience members. And it really is a ladder because, like I said, you can start out doing a guest set, come back in 6 months to MC, maybe you have to MC again. Eventually, they'll pass you to feature. You end up featuring for that club, and if you do a great job featuring, you might have to feature again, or they can, streamline you right up to being a headliner. A process that could take anywhere from 2 years to 5 years to even 10 years, depending on the club.
Oh, wow. Now, I got a question. When you email these clubs, I know, like, actors have headshots or any normal job has resumes. What do comics do?
Comics typically will always have a series of clips they kind of have in their back pocket. Those clips, usually we just put them on YouTube and put them under private links. We usually have a 5-minute clip. A 5-minute clip will basically be a highlight of us going up and doing a 5-minute set of our best stuff. You want to get that clip at a killer club. You want the audience to really be on your side. And the way I do it, and I'm, I feel I can fairly uh, be confident in saying that other comics might do this as well. But I have a 5 minute clean and a 5 minute blue clip. Clean is like family friendly. You can show this clip to a bunch of grandmothers and 5-year-olds and parents and extremely conservative religious peeps, and they will say, "Hey, this is all right, and nothing offended me." I'll have that clean clip, and I'll also have a dirtier clip, or the comedy community calls it blue. When you work blue, you work a little dirtier, of stuff that I feel is my best 5 minutes, but doesn't really give me the restriction of this has to be very family friendly, this has to be clean. Typically, most comics will have a 5 minute of the clean and the dirty. They might have a same thing, a clean dirty, for a 7 minute clip, and then a 10 minute clip. And typically, most comics might have like a 20 minute clip in their back pocket just in case they want a long clip to see if you can sustain a crowd over a long period of time. You definitely send your clip. You send a little bit of a resume. What clubs really like to see, and a lot of places who book you, what they really want to see is TV credits or movie credits. And it's mostly because the logic is if Eric Escobar has been on Last Comic Standing and they can advertise that, a lot of people might not know Eric Escobar, but they do know Last Comic Standing. They may have watched that. So they are an extra, 10 to 20% of your audience that will come out purely based on, here's a show you may have seen him on, oh, I like that show, yes, I would love to come out. Opposed to, oh, here's a name, you have no idea who he is, you know what, let's just stay home, let's just watch some Netflix. So those TV credits are pretty important. A lot of clubs really, 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 really want you to have those TV credits. They're not mandatory, but they definitely help. So that little resume combined with your clip, combined with hopefully a referral of another comic is kind of your key in to get into a lot of places.
Now, for comic, and no, TV's, it is kind of local for here in Los Angeles, but mm-hmm. For people out in America, what's the next best thing if you can't get on TV?
The next best thing is, honestly, I would say it's that comic referral. I have had so many amazing interactions, and it's been a lot of hard work, but also been very lucky to meet so many amazing comics who are current headliners, and they're really hustling and they're really working and they're getting great bookings. And if a amazing headliner works a club somewhere and you're trying to break into that club, it really, really means a lot, opposed to just cold calling and being like, how do bookings work? To kind of ask that headliner in advance, hey, I'm trying to work this club, is it okay if you recommend me, or if I can drop your name? Just because that club might be like, well, if it's a random person we don't know, but if, Jack, the amazing headliner who's been working with us for years, who we really like and we really respect, is referring this guy or this girl, yeah, we would love to put them up because, they're getting vouched in by a respected person.
Nice. Okay, that's really good to know. I'm trying to think because, again, it's amazing. You're answering so many questions, and the stuff you're saying is actually really fascinating to me. Like,
it's a really interesting world. Like, I don't want to say a lot of people, non-comics like civilians have said like, wow, comedy is so hard. I could never do that. It's such a tough job, and it is. It's extremely tough. It's extremely difficult at times, but I would say that it's not. It is difficult. It is hard, but it's more just weird. It's more just like a very weird industry that people don't really know how it works, and everyone's like, yeah, it is fascinating because there's very very few other industries and very few other workplaces that kind of have this very unique feel of a little bit of politics, a lot of hard work, a little bit of knowing the right people, a little bit of breaking down your set from 5 minutes to 15 to 20 to 45 to your hour, college as opposed to clubs. It's just a weird industry that I think it is really fascinating. The more I dive into it, to be like, wow, this is very different than like any job or any career my friends have or I've had previous to this.
Now, you mentioned like TV credits as a way to get ahead, but I'm gonna let you brag for a second. What TV credits do you have?
I will gladly brag. I was recently on season 7 of Last Comic Standing. It was really great. I didn't make it to the finals, but I did get some airtime on NBC, which was great. Um, Aside from that, it's there haven't been too many big things. I've done a lot of little web series. I've done a lot of work that you can see on like Food Network or a couple things on Comedy Central, some things on BuzzFeed. Most recently, the things that I'm kind of most proud of is I was just a featured actor on this movie called The Bandit Hound, which was very low budget. It wasn't, like a big theatrical release or anything, but it had Lou Ferrigno and Judd Nelson and just, big actors who I've always kind of looked in awe of when I was a kid and when I was doing theater in high school. And the most recent thing coming out is probably going to be wrapped at the end of the year, probably released 2017. Don't quote me on that. But it's an amazing new documentary called Where Have You Gone, Lou DiMaggio? Lou DiMaggio, excuse me. Lou DiMaggio is this amazing comic who came up in the 80s. And I'm talking, he came up with guys like Richard Belzer and Colin Quinn and Larry David. Guys who've, big names in the comedy community. And he ended up leaving because he got a great job working in other parts of the industry. He was writing, he was producing. He had a family, so he kind of left stand up. And this documentary is him getting back into stand up, and I'm the young buck who's showing him the new scene and how the comedy boom in the '80s was very exciting, but it's nothing like the current comedy scene that we have right now. The game has changed very, very much, and working with him on this film has been absolutely amazing. It's given me such great insight into how it was before and how it is now, and just it's an ever-changing game. It's an ever-changing industry, and things are very different than they used to be. But we're all still hustling, we're all still working, and we're all doing it for the love of comedy.
How is it different now compared to the 80s? Like, can you give some examples?
Yeah, one thing that he talked about. Actually, I don't think I finished your past question about like what my day was like typically. But
oh my
I was
gosh,
say, it's okay. We're coming back to it.
Which is funny because it feels like you did answer that question, but I was like, I know like the world of comedy is just so like any entertainment job, it's very extensive, it's very complicated, and there's a lot that goes into it, just like you said other than just getting up on stage and performing.
Yeah, definitely. Like, one point to that is I was going to say the nighttime part of my work when I'm not writing or submitting to clubs or trying to put things out there is doing a couple shows a night, doing a few mics a night, open mics, and that's your evening. You start around 6 or 7, and LA is an amazing town. New York is an amazing town, and I feel like there's a lot of great scenes other places in the country. But just speaking in my experience with LA and New York, you can get up 4 or 5, 6 times a night, even through various open mics and various shows, and that's very much my night. And I think something that I really found interesting when talking to or working on this latest documentary is we do those open mics and we do those shows because, one, yes, we love doing it, and 2, it's a great way to work out material at these open mics, but also because these shows and these mics are the places where you meet your brethren, you meet your coworkers, you network, you do a show with a guy, and that guy hosts another show over in Orange County, or you do an open mic, and some guy with you a mic you're just talking to, you're grabbing drinks, you're just telling jokes. They might be running a show on the East Side, and it's a great show where you'd like to get on, or you might be running a show yourself. Like, I've produced a ton of shows in LA, and it's been so great because like, hey, I've been trying to get up at this club for so long. If you're booking there, could I throw you a couple spots on my show, and you can throw me some spots at the club, and we can just help each other out? And that's really the way to move up. It's one way to move up, and I think it's a very common route that a lot of us do, because it's a way where we can work out our material and just meet other people and basically network our way into getting to bigger clubs, into getting to better shows, into upping our career. Back in the 80s, something that I thought was fascinating, just secondhand through people in the documentary, was it was very much like, you go to a club, you go to one club. You go to Catch a Rising Star, you go to the Improv, you go to one club, and you do maybe a couple open mics there over the course of a week, over the course of a couple weeks. And usually the headliners who work at that club would then see you, like you, and kind of take you under their wing and mentor you throughout the process. And that was one of the biggest, craziest things to hear, because right now, we're all family, we're all community, but it's very much a one a one common game. You are working for you, and you don't really have a support system. You don't really have anyone else trying to help you out. You don't really have anyone being like, oh, well, I'm going to try to get you all these shows and try to get you into these clubs. There's a lot of politics with it. You really have to navigate your way through by yourself in a very lonely way. Where back in the day, no, you had your club that you could fall back on. You had a gouged headliner who was well respected to kind of show you the ropes and show you, what clubs to do and try to help you out get shows. It's just not like that anymore, and it was so fascinating to hear that, because since I've been in the game, it's very much been me by myself trying to get as much as that I can for myself, and definitely the way amazing people who I've met have definitely helped me, and I've tried to help other comics, but for the most part it's been just me. Back in the day, no, you had that support system, you had that mentor, you had people who kind of let you know what to do, and you weren't just free falling like you are nowadays into the scene.
Now I got another question again.
Yeah.
Sort of like how, like when you go into a job interview and you're not supposed to ask about the pay. I'm gonna break that rule. How does pay start to factor in? Because I've spoken to people who have started stand up, and usually they'll do free gigs just to get notice. Is there a point when you do start to get paid, or?
Totally, and this is the really, and I don't want to say this negatively, even though I feel like it's across that way, but pay in stand up isn't great, because we're doing this because we love it. We're doing this because we love that applause. We love hearing that laughter. We love being on stage. It's the best feeling in the world. So because of that, if a club or if a venue approaches you, or you approach them and you're working out pay, you really don't have a lot, especially if you don't have TV credits or a big comic. You really don't have a lot to bargain with, because if they say, hey, we're going to pay you, throwing out a number, $50 or $100 to do the show, and you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to be driving out there. You guys are a little far. Like, is it okay if I get an extra $20? Is it okay if I double that or something? More than likely, they're going to say no, because there are literally 100 other comics who are willing to do that spot for that rate or even less, if not for free, because you do it because you love comedy. You don't really do it for the pay. So everyone is willing to kind of outbid you in terms of like, we'll do it for less, because that's just the nature of the beast. As far as pay goes, when you start out, you're going to be doing a lot of open mics. You're going to be doing a lot of bar shows. You're going to be doing a lot of like weird basements and odd shows where you might not get paid. Very much speaking from my experience and my perspective starting in LA, I have really, really high respect for other scenes in, Seattle and even Vegas and even, parts of Texas or, Connecticut and other scenes with amazing comics and amazing scenes and amazing places where they have great shows, where they are paying out talent a little more if they're starting out. My experience in LA is you're not really getting paid when you start out. Eventually, you might be able to do a bar show where you get a free tab. You get a couple well drinks. You get paid in well drinks a lot. You get paid in appetizer a lot. When you start working clubs more often, your guest set is really your audition. So your guest set you might not get paid for necessarily, but it is great because that can lead to a possible weekend being that host or that MC. It can lead to that weekend being a feature where the pay is really just all over the place for clubs all across the country. I have MC'd for, a couple $100, few $100 for a weekend, and then I've also featured for no pay, which is like the next level up, which is really weird. It's like, wow, the features should get paid. Sometimes, obviously as a headliner, you're going to be making bigger money. but it really is kind of a tough question to answer in terms of like what are the rates, because even the standard rate to MC feature headline is going to fluctuate from place to place to place, and it'll also fluctuate on who you are. You might be a new comic, and they might be taking a risk on having you MC, but they have faith in you, so they might give you a lower rate than an MC who's been at that club for 20 years and has, really paid their dues and really, worked a lot of nights. They might deserve a little up. Sometimes you get a flat rate. Sometimes you get the door. If you get the door, that means, hey, you sold out 4 shows this weekend and you're going to get a paycheck. Or, you know what? It's Valentine's Day weekend and everyone's out at dinners. Not a lot of people are going to comedy clubs, or we're a town that kind of thrives off the local college, and it's the summer and college in session. So you're doing 4 shows, 20 people or less a show, 10 people or less a show, and if you collect the door, you're not really making that much cash. That's the clubs, but obviously you have your corporate events that have bigger rates. Colleges, in my experience, I've had the most success with as far as pay goes, because colleges have pretty decent budgets, and I think they don't realize that, we will work for $5 and that gin and tonic, but they're like, oh, wow, we have this in our budget, and if you want, couple grand, upwards, that's something that we have for entertainment, and you're the entertainment, so here you go. So it really is, it's crazy. I've gone on runs and tours where you're making, $5 a night to, a couple hundred a night, back to just not getting paid, back to, losing money on a show. Maybe, you are co-producing that show or renting out a room to put on a show and no one shows up, and, you're out $100 to the venue because you wanted to book a show where you produce it yourself. So it really is just, highs and lows, highs and lows.
Oh, wow. Does that mean you have a job off to the side, or other than being a comedian, and do most comedians do that?
I would say most comedians do have a day job or a side job. I have been very lucky. It's been a combination of luck and a lot of work to be a full-time comic for the last. I did full-time for about a year and a half. Then I had a part-time job, and then I kind of went back to being a full-time comic, and that's what I've been doing for the last few months.
Nice.
And I think it's not. It's no. I would never tell a comic to go full-time and quit their day job. And I think a lot of other comics might say, I'm wrong in that. But personally, you want to dive into it full force. You want to do it 110%. But just being a part of this and knowing how bad the money can be sometimes, the money can be great sometimes. The money can be amazing. You can be, surprised, like, what? I have this much in my bank account? Like, it's never happened before. But on the flip side, like, more often than not, you're going to get a lot of poverty, you're going to get a lot of horrible pay, you're going to get a lot of bounce checks. And because of that, I would not recommend someone to do comedy full-time if they have a great job and, a family to take care of, rent to take care of, because it's really one of those things where you can't pursue your dream of doing stand-up if you don't have the money to go on the road, or you don't have the money to go to festivals. And if you need that job, run with that job and do it, because that's probably going to pay more than stand-up will, at least for the first, 5, 10, maybe even 20 years.
Yeah, I know people who will be a comedian for like 15 years. I actually do know a comedian who has done stand-up for 15 years, and he still has to keep a full-time job because of it.
And that's great. Like, that's awesome. He has a job and he can still do comedy and still get some mics and still do clubs every once in a while. But it's really, I think it's a big disservice to you, especially if you're a listener who wants to get into stand-up, just kind of quit their job and be like, all right, I'm going to be a comic full time, because for me, the money in stand-up has always gotten better, and there has been dry spells, but it never starts off when you're making a lot of money or any money. That those relationships you have with those clubs and those colleges, those relationships you have with casting agents, those relationships you have with bookers, they're just going to get better and better and better. And ideally, the correlation is you'll hopefully make more and more cash to fund your life. But it's it really is something that isn't immediate. So if you gotta, work for a few years, work for 10 years, work for 20 years on the side while you're doing comedy, power to you. Do it. There's no taboo. I feel like there's no disrespect in that. I feel like there's no bash to you for doing that, even though some people will be like, oh, I wish I did this full time. You can. Just do what you need to do first.
Exactly. Now, what are your plans to go from here now that you're working as a full-time comedian?
So obviously, the TV credit thing that we kind of talked about earlier is pretty big. In addition to comedy, I feel like a lot of comics are, or I should say, a lot of comics end up doing acting because they don't necessarily want a sitcom per se, or they don't, want to be on TV. But maybe it's just because it's going to help them in their stand-up career. Those TV credits really, really help you get booked to more clubs. They help you get booked to more colleges. They give you more gigs, and you can want to be an actor full time. That's great too. But I feel like a lot of comics are pursuing more TV roles so they can have better stand-up careers, and that's kind of where I am right now. Still going on auditions, still getting those callbacks when I can get them, and just really hustling to make sure that I do everything that I can to continue the ball rolling for these clubs and for these bookings with that TV credit. I also feel like, the beautiful thing in stand-up is if you look at someone who's already big, like, just throwing out there, like Louis C.K., for example.
Mm-hmm.
Louis C.K. is a comic, and he did stand-up, and then he got TV stuff, and then he got movie stuff, and then he, did bigger things, and he had a couple TV shows. And it's crazy because, like, in this game, there is no end game per se. There is no goal per se. Individually, a lot of people might want to, end up being writers for late night, or they might want to end up being, a TV star, have their HBO special. But once they've achieved that, I feel like there is more that you want to do. So it's kind of just right now, my kind of current goals are just more bookings at clubs, getting more stuff on the road. I do write as well, and I would love to write for late night. I would love to get in a writer's room for something. So, writing more submission packets and fostering those relationships. And really just kind of looking at what I need to do to get to the next step and achieving those things and taking all the baby steps that I can, because, that's life. That's not just comedy. It's going to be a lot of baby steps. It's going to be a lot of, small little things that will eventually get you to your goal, opposed to, you wake up and out of nowhere you have your Comedy Central special.
Mm-hmm. Now, as a comedian, do you think having writing skills does benefit you more? I mean, you do have to write jokes, but you don't need to know like the syntax of grammar in order to.
I think that they definitely go hand in hand. I've always thought that something really cool about comedy is it's comedy, and the definition is so loose. Like, you can see someone do amazingly, beautifully well crafted one-liners and be blown away by the intelligence of their writing, or the skill level of their writing. And then, the next comic could be someone who likes to riff, and you're not maybe laughing so much at their material, but you're laughing at their brand and their personality, and you're really buying into this different thing that you're seeing that might not be well-crafted jokes as much as be, like a character, or just a different way they do it. So it all depends on the comic. It all depends on their point of view, and it all depends on, I kind of mentioned earlier, their brand. If you are a joke comic, and I consider myself very much like, I love my jokes, I like writing material, then, that writing skill definitely comes into play and definitely helps me a lot. And all comics you write, and all comics, should have jokes as defined in one way or another. But, some comics might do amazingly well, and they might not be, writers per se. They just have a really great bit, or a great shtick, or a great actor. They're just so fascinating to watch because their stage presence and their personality and their movement is just so attractive. So, for me, to answer your question, I think writing definitely helps. So I'm in love with writing. I'm in love with jokes and the way jokes are crafted and the way words can elicit that feeling out of people. But that's very much for me personally. And there might be another comic that you can talk to, tomorrow who would say the exact opposite. Like, yeah, I have ideas and I think about those ideas and I kind of craft in my head, but when I'm on stage, I just kind of run with it. And they could be having a great time and audiences could love them as well.
Nice. All right, let's wrap this up. Do you have any last minute advice for any listeners out there?
Ooh, last minute advice. Kind of said earlier, if you want to do comedy, definitely try it out. Maybe it isn't for you, maybe it is for you, but you're not going to know until you try it out. And it really is kind of grueling. It's a lot of hard work. You sleep on a lot of floors. You barely have enough gas to make it to your next gig sometimes. You're working in parts of the country where it's like, wow, they really hate Latinos here, and I'm in trouble. It can be very, very grueling, but you can bomb for months. You can have horrible set after horrible set after horrible set. When I have that one standing ovation, or I have that one applause break, it really is all worth it, and it really is the best feeling in the world, almost drug-like. And it would be, it would hurt for you to want that and want to experience that and not do it or give up after a few months or after even maybe a couple of years because you're not hitting that just yet. You will hit that. You're gonna have to work hard, but you will hit that if you keep hustling through it and you just are open to learning and are open to dropping good jokes so you can learn how to write new ones. And ultimately, it's that hard work combined with just being nice to everyone you know. In any industry, just treat everyone with respect. Tell people you appreciate them. Don't burn bridges. Don't have any beef with anyone because you never know. That one person that you had beef with, that you were mean to, or that you put a mean tweet out to, could be running a show on FX next year, or that one comic that no one was talking to that you decided to go over and just introduce yourself and just kind of talk comedy with and shoot the shit with because they were by themselves. It's that relationship that could lead to more work later. And I hate to look at people in terms of can you give me work? Can you not give me work? Are you of value to my career? Don't look at it that way. But it would be foolish not to realize your community and those around you are the people that you're going to help out and the people who are going to help you out. And we are a community that's trying to help each other, even if it doesn't feel like that. So if you're nice to everyone, don't do it because you might be able to get work out of them later, but just do it to be a good person. And if you're sincere and genuine, that karma definitely will pay itself back off later if you're also putting in that hard work.
That's actually really good advice. I like that. And then also, plug time. Where can we find you?
Oh, yeah. On Twitter and Instagram, my handles are Eric Escobar, but I'm Eric with a K. I do it right. ErikEscobar. If you look me up on Facebook, I'm also on Facebook. Got a fan page there. Got some clips on YouTube. Check it out. I currently do not have a site that's up where you just click down for maintenance. But if you follow me on my social media, definitely give me a shout out. Let me know if I'm coming to your town. Let me know if you'd like to see me. And definitely try to work something out. Maybe try to get you some tickets, or at least try to hang out after the show so we can talk about how great Canary T Robot is.
Yay!
This podcast is a part of the Benview Network.
You can find this and other podcasts like it at BenviewNetwork.com.